Officers and guests, could you also turn off your cameras? You should turn on your camera and microphone when you speak, but please turn them off again afterwards. All councillors must ensure their cameras remain on. Could I, oh, you've begun recording. Yeah, great. Item agenda 1. Apologies for absence. Okay, thank you. Item agenda 2, declarations of interest. None? Okay. Item agenda 3, antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder. I'd like to ask Paul Lewis to present this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, members. Been asked to present a report today in relation to antisocial behaviour, crime and disorder. Committee has requested a report which gives an overview of the priorities in relation to ASB in Merthyr and the impact on residents and visitors, and the latest reporting mechanisms in place for recording ASB, along with future proposals on strengthening our role in crime and disorder with partnership organisations. Section 3.2 outlines the 4-stage approach we take to tackling antisocial behaviour in terms of referrals received. Stage 1, we open an ASB case, a letter sent to the perpetrator advising of their behaviour and that it's been reported. We can escalate that to stage 2 should the matter should an additional referral be received, where we can warn of additional repercussions. Stage 3 would usually take the form of more formal notice, such as a community protection warning, and in some stages it can lead to a meeting with the individuals and possible antisocial behaviour contracts to try and curb the behaviour. Stage 4, if it did get to that point, we can look at more formal tools and powers that can involve issuing actual notices and prosecution for breach of notices. So that's the 4-stage approach that's taken across the community safety community. Where we are now, currently the vast majority of antisocial referrals we're receiving are from South Wales Police. Our community safety officers have direct access to the police niche system, where officers from South Wales Police are able to task incidents to go through the antisocial behaviour process that I previously outlined. Officers then are able to update the police system in relation to the activities we are taking. So there's a two-way street between us and the police, so we both know what's going on with any particular referral. Sometimes we have incidents where individuals are unable to be identified. So if we take a youth annoyance at a particular venue in Merthyr, we may just receive a referral through that antisocial behaviour is taking place in an area where we're unable to identify individuals. That information then goes for us to look at hotspot trends and hotspot locations where we can work with the police on more proactive operations. Members will obviously be aware we also receive referrals direct from elected members, and what we tend to do with that information is we'll work with partners such as our registered social landlords and the police to look at the issues and what options we've got to tackle the behaviour. Section 5, where we are now, instruction and process. Obviously 101 is the main portal for referring antisocial behaviour incidents into South Wales Police. What is able to be done with that information is where South Wales Police then are able to respond and officers visit the scene, we can get that first-hand information and evidence of what's taking place, and hopefully we'll also get information as to the perpetrators. Then we can start taking our 4-step approach. In addition to the ASB 4-step approach, we've got a local problem-solving group. That consists of agencies across the Community Safety Partnership. We meet on a monthly to quarterly time frame. It's chaired by a local police inspector. And at these meetings, the data produced from 101 reports hotspot locations that can be discussed. And then through partnership approaches, put various activities in place to try and curb the behaviour. A key challenge, which I'm sure members are aware of, is the perceived underreporting of antisocial behaviour. Online social media such as Facebook report issues within the county borough, but then when we challenge our police colleagues, these are not reflected within the 101 data. So the challenge for us is obviously getting that information that members often receive and is reported on social media into the proper process and into the 101 system. I know Chair of Scrutiny has written to the police, and it's going to be subject of a further workshop. So I won't go into any further detail on that, Chair, at this stage. Current priorities for our community safety team in Merthyr, tackling town centre related ASB, particularly violence, and looking at issues and addressing the increase in vehicle related antisocial behaviour. To try and tackle these issues, 2 multi-agency groups have been established with a view of looking at a preventative intelligence and enforcement options to tackle and reduce these incidents. 5.6 outlines the ASB figures for Merthyr Tydfil since April. So that's broken down into occurrences and referrals. The referrals obviously will come through the niche system, as I alluded to earlier, and officers where there are identifiers will be able to begin the process. Where we want to be, we recognise that reliance on one-on-one data alone may not give a true reflection of the concerns of our residents, and all forms of intelligence need to be assessed as a partnership and plans put in place to address these concerns. Adopting an intelligence-led, smarter approach to enforcement, we are confident we can still make an impact and make Merthyr Tydfil a safer place. Possible to return to austerity remains a threat in tackling community safety issues. Services across public protection in Merthyr have been seen a reduction of staff and resources, with budget reductions of up to 50% since 2010. Further cuts could represent further pressure in meeting community needs. Members are aware that obviously we've got additional powers that we can introduce public space protection orders. They can be brought in to tackle some of the community issues raised and tackle incidents such as car cruising, street drinking, and nuisance associated to irresponsible dog owners, such as dog fouling, dogs off leads, and dogs used to sports fields. Currently, we do not have sufficient resource to enforce any PSPOs that were brought in, but we are looking at funding opportunities to bring in community wardens to address this demand. We're also in the process of discussing a joint enforcement team with South Wales Police. This will see local authorities carrying out joint patrols on an agreed priorities list. Members will be aware that community issues reported require a multi-agency response, as some areas are enforced by the local authority and others are the domain of the police. It is hoped a report it once approach will then be adopted, and a joint enforcement approach will be actioned to tackle these through these joint enforcement teams. Partnership work is already undertaken on projects, but what we aim to do is make it part of our core business. So instead of having a police force and a local authority enforcement team, there's a joint team that tackles all community issues together. In 2023, legislation will also be passed, placing a statutory duty on the authority to develop plans to tackle serious violent crime. Work has already started, and working alongside South Wales Police and the Violent Crime Reduction Unit at the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, we seek to develop a needs assessment, a problem profile, to help us develop an action plan to meet this new statutory duty. CCTV remains an essential tool in the prevention and detection of crime. Since the service moved under public protection, we have seen an upgrade in our infrastructure, which places us as having one of the most sophisticated setups in South Wales. Better recording and understanding of data will support intelligence priorities and will also support South Wales Police with investigations with retrospective access to footage. So what we need to do next is continue to report the reporting mechanisms for ASB, work smarter with partners in tackling ASB and utilising our powers effectively, work with the police as part of a joint operational unit, ensuring the tools afforded to each agency combine on tackling community safety issues, and develop our CCTV to be the eyes and ears of all council services and not just seen as a tool for the police, and provide essential information and evidence. Community safety contributes to the wellbeing goals and sustainable development priorities. I'm happy to take any comments or questions from members.
Thank you, Paul. I'd like to open it to questions. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've got a few. On page 7, under 5.4, we refer there to addressing the increase in vehicle-related antisocial behaviour. Isn't that a specific job for the police? I mean, if a car's been broken into, or anything to do with a car, it's, as long as I've ever known, it's been the responsibility of the police for the individual to report it to Southwest and for the police to take up that matter. Is that going to change now?
The work that we do with South Wales Police is, I think, the role for the local authority with vehicle antisocial behaviours around prevention. So we're meeting with the police at the moment, looking at hotspot locations, which have been some of our public car parks. So if you take Merthyr Leisure Village, College Car Park, they're within the council's domain. So we're looking at options around whether that be restricting access at certain times to our car parks to try and avoid the driving within our council-owned properties. Or looking at a public space protection order. So for instance, trying to stop car meets within the car parks. So we can bring in a public space protection order, banning vehicles meeting and congregating in car park areas. And those are tools that the local authority can do. We've also got traffic calming measures. Members will be aware of the success in the Lower Valley in terms of the average speed cameras that have been put in Merthyr Vale, Troy Daru. So again, if we have got hotspot locations where there is irresponsible driving, we as a local authority can look at putting our measures in. But Councillor Jones, you're quite right. When it comes to enforcement and catching criminals, that is remains the priority for the police. We haven't got powers to stop vehicles. And if people are driving irresponsibly and dangerously, that is a matter for South Wales Police. So that is correct. So it's that multi-agency approach.
Right. Thank you for that. That explains the matter to me. But on one of the points you've just raised, and that's about our public car parks. I know, for example, that the police have spoken to me and my councillor colleague in my ward, although the car park is not directly in front of the college, where there's been real problems there. And the same for that matter down at the car parks in front of the leisure centre. But unless we close that off, unless you physically put fencing all the way around and gates and lock it, it's going to be one hell of a job trying to stop these groups. And I agree with you, they're causing problems. But to keep them out all the time, you'd have to have guards there unless you put gates up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and this is the conversations we have in the police. It's that balancing act, because obviously we're trying to make Merthyr an attractive destination, particularly for the nighttime economy. So we don't particularly want to be shutting our car parks off to people. So it's that difficult balancing act for us is how we make those environments safe for people who want to use the late night economy, but still trying to tackle those who are using it as a racetrack or for irresponsible driving. So these are the conversations we're having in terms of, is barring off the answer, or is bringing in orders, banning gatherings the route to go. So I think these are the things that we're discussing at the moment, and that balancing act between having free accessible space for the college users, for people who are using our car parks legitimately, but then balancing that with those who are abusing the car parks and using them as racetracks.
Yeah, okay. I've got another question, Chair, on page 8 and a 6.4. Two, actually. You refer there to irresponsible dog owners, and there are irresponsible dog owners all over the county borough, but you refer there to dog fouling. Dog fouling is, correct me if I'm wrong, a responsibility of environmental health officers. Is that correct?
There was specific legislation that covered dog fouling, which was repealed. And then you had to bring in a public space protection order to stop dog fouling. If there's a sufficient mass that makes a public health, so if you've got a garden, for instance, with multiple dog fouling within it, it could present a public health risk. But what I would class as irresponsible ownership, where people are allowing their dogs to use the footpaths, for instance, currently, that would require a public space protection order to enforce.
Right. So if a dog owner, a dog fouls on the pavement in a street somewhere, if somebody came to me, I'd say, well, you need to report that to, and you need to give a statement bearing witness to it, or photographs, or a video, Does that now still go to the environmental health officers?
It wouldn't, on its
Right.
own in isolation. That incident you referred to then, currently that wouldn't be enforced.
Right. So apart from the public space programme, the powers that the environmental health officers had to bring dog owners to task has gone.
Yes.
I just find that absolutely astounding, Chair, but there we are. In the same page in the bottom there, you refer, Paul, to the opportunities to bring in community wardens to address this demand. How many community wardens are we talking about, and who's going to finance that?
Ultimately, we're looking at opportunities through levelling up funding, whether that presents us with an opportunity to recruit community safety wardens for a trial period, to try and assist with some of the community-related issues we've got, act as professional witnesses in the town centre, for instance, to some of the antisocial behaviour. But it is dependent at the moment on external funding, and obviously even more so following budgetary restraints and growth being limited. We probably will be looking at trying to achieve that through external funding.
Grants you're talking about, probably, is it?
Yeah, the levelling up funding.
Okay.
Sorry, Clive,
Yeah.
can I just, I'm guessing that's through SPF. When you originally wrote it, how many would it have been for?
Oh, sorry, Clive, I should have answered that in my question. Originally, we were looking at bringing in 6 community wardens, and they would work on that joint enforcement team then with South Wales Police. So they would boost the numbers in terms of a joint enforcement patrol. So we were looking originally at 6, but obviously until any funding has been confirmed, I'm unable to give you a fixed figure on how many I would have should my funding bid be successful.
2 seconds. And there's one question I was going to ask. Yeah, in terms of other local authorities that operate warden system, is there any others locally that is working well in?
Caerphilly have got a very strong community warden service. Ron the Cynataff have just invested in quite a considerable number of officers. So there are good examples. We do work with them.
Okay,
we've met with Caerphilly, we've met with RCT to look at their models, and it would be one we'd look to replicate in Merthyr.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul.
Well, fine, Chair. I got 2 other questions. On 6.5, which is on page 8, you refer that, Paul, to the process of discussing a joint enforcement team. Can you tell me how often that would happen? Explain to me and the rest of the committee, does that mean that, for example, you'd be in a police car with police officers? Because that's what I think that means. Only I'm not sure. Really, that's, and how often, what times of the day are we talking about? Friday evening and Saturday evening, where things seem to kick off, not only in Merthyr Tydfil, but elsewhere?
I think the model that we're hoping to achieve would be, at the moment, obviously, we task our staff on what we consider to be council priorities, and South Wales Police will task their staff on what they perceive to be South Wales Police priorities. The model we want to try and adopt is that through joint tasking, we can look at what are the real community issues. And as members will be aware, you'll have issues which will affect you as a local ward member, which will have a police aspect to it, and it may have a council aspect to it. So if you take a parking issue, you may have a ping-ponging between South Wales Police and the council over the same issue, and they do this bit and we do that bit. The idea is you report it once, and through that joint team, you use all the tools in the toolkit to deal with the problem that's causing the issue. So what we would look to do is have a joint fortnightly meeting with South Wales Police, where we would sit down and we'd say, right, these are our members' interests. This is what's coming through the door. This is what we've seen on social media. The police will have their 101 data. And then through agreeing what those priorities are, is an agreement from the local authority and the police that we will jointly tackle those issues, and then we'll report back progress within a 2-week period. And it's a way then that we can deploy those resources together. So you're hitting an issue once, not perhaps the police going there and saying, oh, well, actually, it's the council who enforced this bit of law. I'll refer that through to the council, and then a week later, I'm picking it up. Hopefully, it'll be, right, these are the priorities, and not looking at the detail who enforces, just get out there and get the problem resolved. So that's the model we want. We're currently in discussion with the police. In fairness to the police, they are more than happy to look at this as a working model. So it's just going through that detail, really, and working out the delegation of authority in terms of the local authority who will attend those meetings, because obviously that individual will need to come back and instruct staff on working practices, and same for the police, and agree in that joint patrol. So, you know, it may be a Saturday afternoon in town, both officers will be out, and we'll be able to tackle a variety of issues that will be enforced by both parties, but it'll be a one-stop shop and a joint approach.
Okay, fine. And I presume as a result of those fortnightly meetings, there'll be feedback to within the authority and to us as the scrutiny committee covering that?
Yeah, ideally, if once the practice agreed, I think again this will be part of the workshop that we develop in. Is it would be a scrutiny report back on priorities identified, what we've done to assess those priorities, and obviously to take scrutiny's feedback on the ground. Are you seeing a difference? Because you know that's the proof of the pudding, is are we seeing some of these issues that you're having being resolved by a joint team? So yeah, we would strongly look at bringing reports back regularly to scrutiny on the progress of that joint model.
Okay, thanks. And you did at the very start in your presentation explain to us what the system is of reporting matters. I know that members right across the authority, to say the least, are frustrated with the 101 system. Do you as officers believe that it's working effectively?
I think it'd be unfair for us to comment on that. What I can say is obviously from community and members, there is a frustration with the system. I think that is appreciated by South Wales Police. I think what I can assure scrutiny is Chair has strongly communicated that, and will be a strong feature of the workshop that's coming up. So
right. That's great.
and we have asked for some quite detailed reports. So again, that, you know,
right.
I share the frustration of members, because for us to say report it to 101 and then we hear in the stories back from members of delays, etc. I can understand the frustration.
Yep. Thank you. And one last question, Chair. It's under the heading what we need to do next. 7.3. In fact, there are two 7.3s, Paul. It's the one that's concerned with where I quote, develop our CCTV to be the eyes and ears of all council services and not just seen as a tool for the police. Well, I completely and entirely agree with you there. I think it's the dealing with the requests for having CCTV cameras in particular parts of wards throughout the county borough, and as you know, we are pursuing one at least in our ward. So I think that I agree that we need to develop that, but it's the system as to how you get to the situation where a camera is justified and agreed within the local authority setup.
In terms of, and perhaps to add some detail on how we select an area or agree to an area having CCTV, we would be scrutinised by the Surveillance Commissioner. CCTV is quite an intrusive system. It is put in public spaces, it is monitoring public spaces. So as an authority, we have to satisfy under any sort of audit that where we've placed the cameras are proportionate and necessary. Unfortunately, that relies on police occurrence data. So, you know, we ask for our policing partners if there is a particular hotspot area there's a number of occurrences of an antisocial behaviour nature, that would evidence for us the need for putting a camera there. The difficulty we have is without that occurrence information, we wouldn't get over that first hurdle that there's a need for a camera. And I think that's what we've got to get over with the 101 reporting and how we get the data together to support a camera. So we do have to evidence that. We can't just put a camera anywhere. It has to be justified, and it needs that data back in and evidence back in to justify why we've put up such an intrusive piece of equipment. A lot of people, members will be aware, a lot of people don't like CCTV cameras, and that's law-abiding people. There's people don't like the thought of being monitored. So it is quite impactful in some areas. So we have to ensure that we can satisfy any challenge that is proportionate where we've placed the cameras.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think the issue is the fact that what's on the police data system are those members of the public who've got an issue, who have not got to the extent of waiting half a day on 101 to report matters and get through to the system, give up. So there's a mismatch with what's happening in the community and what's, in my view, what's happening on the police system.
Yeah, if we don't mind, just add with that. That's something exactly, you've hit the nail on the head, that we've organised. An over-reliance on a single point of data is obviously a vulnerability, particularly if people are having challenges and issues getting through to 101. So what we're currently developing is ASB diaries, right. Because what we've seen in discussion with elected members and members of the community is, like you said, they're alluding to numerous amounts of ASB or incidents, and then when we're coming back, because we're an evidence-led service, particularly for this sort of area, the evidence is simply isn't there in terms of occurrences. So one piece of work we are looking at, and we're currently in the middle of, is creating ASB diaries. Right. So where some of these matters are coming up, you'd be able to have a minimum set standard of information to put in this diary. So you'd know that if you write down dates, times, names, addresses, they'd be mandatory fields to fill out then to ensure that that log is really robust and would stand up then to being audited or looked at by yourselves to use for stuff like that.
That's great, Chair. Did you see that it just started or is due to start?
Yeah, it's due to start now. We're currently working on the diary over the last few weeks, and it should be completed over the next few weeks now.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, very much.
No problem. Thanks, Clive. Before I call Councillor Williams-Price, I just, on the CCTV, there's been some capital spend over the last few years on that. Do we need further capital spend to bring it up to date to the standard you want?
We were quite lucky, or I say lucky, worked hard with South Wales Police on achieving Safer Streets funding, where it was over £500,000 for street lighting, gating and CCTV developments in the county borough. So we were one of the first to get the Safer Street funding. So CCTV infrastructure at the moment is top of the range and it's current. But like any technology, 3 to 4 years down the line, yes, possibly we'll be knocking on Steve Jones asking for capital funding again, or hopefully we can find further funding streams. So, we are looking at redeployable cameras. So as Councillor Jones has alluded there, you will get hotspot areas that crop up where perhaps we don't need a fixed camera, but we do need a camera for a period of time to try and curb any behaviours. So again, we are looking at where we can achieve best value by buying redeployable cameras that work on 4G, 5G technology. And that way we can meet some instant demand whilst perhaps factoring in the long term when we're upgrading the system of re-looking at where the hotspot areas are and where we put the cameras. So at the moment, and touching wood, the cameras are up to date, they're working, and they're providing superb evidence and intelligence for us as a service. But as with any infrastructure, 3 to 4, 5 years time, we're probably going to be needing to replace, upgrade and to what the latest technology is. So, and again, working with our police partners, some of the benefits we've got with the new system is getting evidence to the police. There's some really new exciting developments coming forward that's going to make that much slicker in terms of the evidence we capture as CCTV, of getting that into the police systems. So, you know, there's some real good developments, which I'll be happy to come back to Scrutiny when it's developed to let you know.
Great, thank you. One of the RSLs I work with have got, I think, radar of Revada systems, and they're excellent. The council currently don't have any.
We've got the one that we were using. The difficulty we had with it is the exhaustive costs on data, because they were using the 4G network, which is using telephone technology. The constant access to that data isn't as simple as it would be if it was part of our mainstream cameras. I think where we've developed our systems now is they work on Wi-Fi. So in the old days, we'd have to lay down quite expensive cabling to put CCTV up. But what we've been able to do now is piggyback on the back of established cameras and connect via Wi-Fi. And in terms of RSLs, we're in discussions with RSLs at the moment about opportunities for increasing our fleet of cameras, but working with them to cover some of the RSL areas. And then we'd monitor those cameras for them. So we are looking at those working relationships as well.
Well, last question on CCTV. The police, if you had a hotspot area, do they have any that you could, you know, speak to them and they could put in that area?
I think the police have got more personalised cameras. So if, for instance, somebody was a victim of doorstep crime or burglary, you can have the doorbell type technology. And I know the police did through Safer Streets buy some of that equipment as well, Ryan. So I think that's available through neighbourhood policing for individual properties. But in terms of public space cameras, they would rely on the local authority.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Right, okay. Councillor Williams-Price.
Thank you. Please just bear with me as I find all my different screens that I need. Thanks. If I can just touch upon some of the points that have perhaps already been made in the chamber in terms of the perception of underreporting of social and antisocial behaviour. So firstly, could you just clarify, is it the perception of the community safety partnership that antisocial behaviour is underreported?
Yes.
Thank you. And is there any work that could be done to evidence this gap between occurrences and reports?
I think the difficulty we've got with that is it's where the data would be recorded. I mean, we can anecdotally look at social media and the amount of reports that are on social media and marry that up to 101 data. But again, it's how factual or word of mouth is the social media data. So there's anecdotal evidence to support that there is underreporting. What we are hoping is the workshop and the information that the chair has asked from South Wales Police will give us a lot more factual data that we can delve into in the workshop, Chair.
Thank you. And can I ask what?
Sorry, Anna. Can I just come in on that point you just made? Like, I think it's a valid point of what Hannah made. I've just done some work outside of being a councillor. We've done some media sentiment analysis where we did a search across social media platforms for certain words, and maybe that's something that you could do, or maybe we could encourage people to use a hashtag when they put in stuff on social media. So then that hashtag Merthyr ASB or whatever, and then it's just flagged up, and it's easy to do that search then. Thank you. Sorry, Anna.
Thanks. So my next question was, what do you see as the best route in improving public engagement with reporting?
We've obviously got online reporting methods as a local authority. The members of the public can go onto our website and report antisocial behaviour issues directly to us as a community safety team. What we're unable to give is perhaps that immediate response that South Wales Police could via 101 or, in the worst case scenarios, 999. The member diaries that Ryan's referred to, I think, is going to be a key product for us. So by providing members with the means of recording ASB from their residence, we'll provide that evidential platform for us moving forward. I wouldn't want to create too many reporting channels because I think there's a risk there of watering down data between agencies. But I certainly agree that perhaps the current one reporting system isn't adequate. And we do need to look as a local authority on how we best capture member concerns where the public are turning to elected members through frustration. And we're hoping the diary system will benefit that.
Thanks. Picking up on some of the points raised about vehicle-related antisocial behaviour and the use of council car parks as a hotspot for that type of behaviour, as opposed to shutting the car parks entirely, what do you see the benefits of automatic number plate recognition on those car parks?
How it would be used. In terms of timings that it would be used for. There's obviously cost implications for us as a local authority. That isn't cheap technology. And again, where it's tend to be used is where you've got barrier systems in place. The ANPR may read the vehicle details, lift the barrier and allow you entry. And again, that's not something I think as a local authority we want to go down the route of barriering and off our car parks. We have ANPR in Merthyr within our CCTV infrastructure, and it may be something we can look at further. Of course, the caveat with that, it may pick up entry and exit from a car park, but it won't necessarily capture the behaviour of the individuals within the car park. So again, it's what evidential value it will give us by just capturing people coming in and out. I think we are trying to use our CCTV to capture images of irresponsible driving and working with the police to retrospectively tackle that. But yeah, you know, it's not something we've ruled out, but we've got to look at what it will give us in terms of the activity in the car park as opposed to just capturing who's going in and out.
Thanks. Moving on to 6.4 with regards to the community wardens. Obviously, you've said that you're looking at levelling up funding for a trial period. Could you just clarify what's the potential timescale of the application and then how long it would take post-application for those community wardens to be in post if it was successful?
If successful, we'd be looking to advertise in the new year for posts. And the SPF funding, the levelling up funding, is for 3 years, including this financial year. So if you take, we would, if we could recruit in January and we were successful, it would be for January, February, March of this financial year, and then for the 2 future years. It would then obviously be subject to what funding may be available to continue the project.
Thank you. And just one last one, please. With regards to CCTV, obviously we've had a discussion about the value of CCTV and the opinions of some people in terms of the role of CCTV and how it needs to be proportionate and justified. So could you tell me how the upgraded CCTV system has contributed to tackling ASB? Is there evidence to suggest that ASB is reduced since this system was put in place?
I wouldn't necessarily say that we could evidence that ASB is reduced. What I can point to and what we will bring to future scrutinies is a breakdown of the type of incidents we found. It's certainly been beneficial in clamping down on some of the violent crime in our town centre. And we've had some really good results from that. And in terms of public reassurance, we've also, within our CCTV infrastructure, we've got a tannoy system. So again, what we're developing with our operators is we understand the pressures South Wales Police are under, and we're utilising the tannoy system to warn individuals who are starting to behave in a manner that wouldn't be appropriate, that they're being recorded as a preventative measure. So I think what would be interesting to bring back perhaps for scrutiny at a future time is a breakdown of the success of the system. We work in what South Wales Police are doing now is they're providing us with feedback on where we've captured incidents of what that's led to, which is really good for our operators because they can see a value in what they're doing. But also for us, it's providing the key intelligence that's going to dictate where our resources go in the future. But the system as it stands at the moment is probably the best it's been in Merthyr. And the data systems that Ryan sitting next to me has brought in, I think once that data starts getting broken down and scrutinised, I think all members will see the value. I think at the moment, the system on our last report is 75 proactive, 75% of incidents are proactive. So without our operators being there, 75% of those incidents wouldn't have been detected. So I think that shows the value of those eyes and ears on the street corners. So just for that data alone, I think shows it's impactive. But we're hoping again through better use of the system and intelligence, we'll see even better figures moving forward, particularly with prosecution rate from using our footage, which again is starting to be brought back into our system now.
That's great. Thank you for your comprehensive answers. That's all of my questions.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, on the antisocial behaviour, I guess it's hard to say if it's improved because, well, from my point of view, post-COVID, ASB seems to have been on the rise. So it might have, you might be tackling it, better, but the incidents are rising. On SPF, it's a 3-year program from April this year. I'm hoping, I know you said from 3 months and then 2 years, but I'm hoping it'll still be 3 years. Fingers crossed anyway, but yeah. Councillor Thomas, do you want to come in? Oh. Yeah.
Oh no, you before me.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My sort of question is going to circulate more back around what the question from Anna Williams-Price is. Obviously, the number plate recognition software. Should you get a flag? Firstly, are all of the council-owned or council-operated car parks covered by CCTV?
No, majority of our CCTV stock is in and around the town centre. So we got good coverage on the college car park, both Riverside and the back end by Ynysfarch. We've got reasonable coverage then down at the leisure centre. But then on the outside of town then, we're limited in terms of CCTV. We've got a number in the Gurnas, Gethley Dig, and we're just working on some of the cameras down Trearis. So no way.
So essentially, and the key areas are covered.
Yeah.
Right. Following up on that, then, obviously we have the availability or the functionality to introduce number plate recognition software, and you get a flag up of a certain time or a certain vehicle that was seen leaving an area at a certain time. Could you not then marry that up with the CCTV footage of the area to actually then collate? Because then that would eliminate the process then of guesswork.
Yeah. So with our AMPR currently, we've got 8 AMPR cameras in and around the peripheries of the town centre. They're not situated on exits in and out of the car park, but they are in and around the peripheries. So what we've seen in terms of enforcement and action, where that's benefited the system, is like you stated, but if we have a request through for a vehicle with a description and a number plate, whereas prior to having it, we would just troll through the images, which is quite laborious, takes some time. We just put the reg in, white BMW, such and such reg, and that would make it a lot easier. So it's benefited us in that, terms of that. However, it's determined then we've got approximately 70 odd CCTV cameras, and some cameras, particularly in and around the town, they can't be sort of everywhere at once. So where we've got the CCTV that would be able to cover the college car park, one camera might be looking over towards the Coolers nightclub, because it's busy, because there's a queue along the busy road. What that camera is essentially taken away from then is looking at the car park.
Yeah.
And that's the same everywhere where we've got a camera. We've sometimes got to prioritise that we've got to turn it a few degrees left or right to monitor a particular area. And we can't have a camera on every corner, so we do our best, but we certainly can't cover it.
No, thanks for that. Now, this might be me playing devil's advocate on this one. Obviously, car meets are rife. Even during COVID, we had one that, you know, resulted in 170 odd cars popping up. Now, me personally, I think that could have been policed where it was actually done under a guided sort of viewpoint. Have we, as an authority, considered that as an option instead of penalising people doing car meets, finding them a space where they can actually do it? Because there are genuine enthusiasts who are there to actually share a community rather than actually be antisocial. Okay, 90% of those people will be there just to show off their cars. The other 10% are there to just play absolute, you know, hell. So has that been considered?
This is always the difficulty with public space protection orders, because you are putting a blanket on potentially people who, for instance, I think it was last weekend, there was some quite good social media of some high performance cars that came to Merthyr, and they were situated down near the bus station, and you know, drummed up considerable trade for the town centre, behaving in an impeccable manner, but showing off classic or highly prestigious cars that, you know, people like to go and see. Read a Car, we've had classic car shows in Read a Car. So again, we have to be careful with the wording, that we're not stopping every activity. Where you're quite right, Councillor Thomas, there's some events you want to welcome. I think Trago Mills had a classic car show, and it brought people from miles around to come and see. So we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are some good meets, and perhaps it needs to be worded that the order can be disapplied on application, so at least the authority can vet what's coming, and we know that it's going to be beneficial for the town and not be a nuisance.
No, absolutely, and that's something I sort of want to sort of click onto. Is obviously I know we've had events where they've been done on a lot, you know, by, so let's call them larger companies. They've been done in such a way where they've been done really well. That one during COVID, obviously clearly marketed on social media. Everybody knew about it. Everybody knew it was coming. Still happened, and then obviously it was only later that it was seen to obviously breach COVID rules and things like that. That could have been done on such a really good scale. Socially, it would have been brilliant to actually market as a thing. However, I understand obviously that at the times it was the wrong thing to do. My next question, automated support system that pre-populates reference numbers. Do you know, like when you access maybe your bank online and stuff like that, you often get like a little stupid chat box that pops up. Now, as soon as you click onto that, that pre-populates a code for you. Whether you see it or not, you can ask the chat person, can I have the reference number? And it's there. Have we considered that? Because then that would then, like you said, where it waters down the information through agencies, it wouldn't necessarily water it down, because then you can refer straight back to that reference number. By the way, I'm phoning the police now because I phoned the council about this. This was the reference number I was given. They can contact you. There it is in black and white. Has that been considered?
The technology around accessing services, you know, there's a lot to learn from the private industry, I think, in terms of modernising how we interact with the public. That's both the council and the police. I wouldn't place that firmly on the police's door. I think we can learn from that as well as a local authority. But yeah, I mean, these systems are there. It's having the expertise to introduce them, and obviously the capacity to do so as well, because they are resource intensive. So you have to have somebody. You have to have somebody at the end of the chat bar who's able to answer the queries. So again, that's a challenge.
Well, I think that's why I sort of essentially mentioned the word automated, was because obviously a lot of them are chat bot based, and then if you get so far, and obviously the chat bot can't assist you any further, you then either get transferred into a person, or they'll say, look, your call has been noted, we'll get someone to get back to you within X amount of hours. But I think that system, if we could adopt it in any kind of fashion, would help alleviate the 101 stress as well. But that's just my opinion on that.
And I think for local authority as well, I think our services could benefit from that as well. So yeah, I'd certainly feed that into our senior leadership team as a suggestion.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Scott. Councillor Salmon?
Thank you, Chair. Just following on from Councillor Scott Thomas, where he said that most people at these car meets, probably 95% of them, are law-abiding, which is probably right. Have you or will you engage with the car owners that go to these meets, as they may have influence over those causing the antisocial behaviour, and possibly they may be possibly willing to speak to the people causing the anti-social behaviour, especially if there's a possibility of restrictions on car parks.
Yeah, I mean, working with those organisations, they'll they could provide valuable intelligence. I mean, from the meets that we've had in Merthyr, the organised meets, they've come from far afield. And I think sometimes we're the victim of the great the great road networks that we now developing in Merthyr, which the heads of the valley's done. But yeah, the A470, A465 lends itself to Merthyr becoming a little bit of a hub for individuals to perhaps come and meet. But yeah, I'll certainly take that on board. If we were going down the route of a public space protection order, it would be subject to full consultation, and we would ensure that any car, trying to think of the term to use, car clubs, we'd ensure that they're included in any consultation and would widely publicise. And again, through that engagement, we may get more intelligence over some of these illegal activities. South Wales Police have got a dedicated roads unit, and I do know that they obviously monitor and intelligence on these groups, because they're not just operating in Merthyr. It's not unique to Merthyr. This is happening across the country, but it's how we manage it to make sure that it achieves what it's meant to do, which is reducing nuisance, but also doesn't curb, as Councillor Thomas said, those individuals who are passionate about their hobby and present no risk to anybody.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's already been mentioned as well that placing restrictions on car parks has the possibility of moving the problem outside of the town centre as well. And I know we're having issues in Dowlas and Pant Ward in some of the car parks there. This is why in your report of 5.4 it says about needing to work together, multi-agency groups. Will those multi-agency groups consist of someone with a knowledge of MOT testing? Because a lot of residents complain about the noise from exhausts, and sometimes they are really, really loud, and this is like late at night. Or is that even illegal?
The police, obviously, if a vehicle's been modified in such a way that it presents antisocial behaviour in the way that it's been modified, the police have specific powers, Section 59 powers, to deal with vehicles that are behaving in an antisocial behaviour manner. And that's exactly, Councillor Salmons, you've alluded to there, that would be exhausts developed and the noise of the exhausts, or sometimes you'll get the revving of the engine where they're not necessarily going extra fast, but it causes that nuisance. So there is specific legislation in place that covers that. And obviously that's down to officers witnessing and being able to action on the spot. And I think this is a difficulty we've got with those CCTV, is obviously it captures image but doesn't capture sound.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks both. Any other questions? Councillor Thomas?
Not so much a question, Chair, but a little bit of a sort of information sort of element for Councillor Salmon's question. Most of the people in the environment of obviously the car meets and stuff like that will have bolt-on stuff. So when it comes to provisions like MOTs, as you queried, they take them off and put the old ones back on. So then and that's well known within obviously the background of that sort of element of life. But again, yeah, the police will have decibel readers and things where they can test obviously the sound element of a car, and if it reaches a certain point, then obviously they do breach, so they will then be fined.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Next question is from Hilary.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I'm approaching this from a slightly different lens of a co-opted member than questions from the councillors. So my first question is just to ask about and excuse me, I've got the same issue with regards to screens as I move around. So 3.2, the antisocial behaviour, use the 4-stage approach. If I've read the report correctly, that 4-stage approach is still in use. What powers or influence is there to bring at stage 3 the perpetrator in for the formal warning? Is that an issue, or do people tend to comply?
Yeah, for the ASB process, when it comes to that point where we invite them in, generally most people turn up. if I have to give examples over recent months, we've had some young people fail to attend. And what we state to them, then we'll send out letters, which is a fail to attend letter. It goes on the record. So if that progresses any further, if it did go to court or go down any formal route, it's essentially on the record that they failed to attend. It is a voluntary attendance, so we do conduct the meetings in Merthyr Police Station with a police officer, and we do tell them that they're there voluntarily, but it's of benefit to them to actually be there. And some of the work we do with them then in those meetings are positive requirements as well as prohibitions. So ABCs, acceptable behaviour contracts and things like that. They're informal means, but they build up a case file should it need to go any further. So it's really handy for that.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I forgot to preface my questioning by saying I think I realised that maybe my questions are best served via a workshop, because it's part of my understanding, because I'm not a member of the council or not a councillor. So apologies in advance if the next two questions are more suited to a workshop. Just going back to your report. So I'm looking at section 4 now, where we were on page 6. Again, this is just for my understanding. So 4.1, are you now saying that, because it's currently the vast majority of referrals are from the South Wales Police, so it's written in the sort of present tense, and I'm just wondering whether, is that direct access to the police niche system still available, or is this a past system and 5 onwards is the new system?
Yeah, if I'll answer that for you. We've still got access to the niche system. We work off a niche system. Almost exactly 3 years ago, up until that point, as well as having niche historically, we also used something called ASBIT, which was an antisocial behaviour database. And what happened then, the 7 local authority areas within the South Wales Police Force area, we all come together. A number of changes were made where all 7 local authorities, some of which didn't have access to niche like Merthyr's had historically, we all came together to actually work exclusively on niche. So how it works, not to go too in detail, is Merthyr, like other local authority areas, we'll have an ASB inbox where officers can be tasked, referrals can come in, workloads can be managed. And part of that streamlining as well is going back historically, where you've got cases like the Fiona Pilkington case was really tying up reporting methods and reporting systems to make sure that we had one single point of recording and management to make sure we weren't missing out. So that's one of the reasons.
Thank you. I'm my subsidiary for that. Now I know that that police niche system is still in use. Is it just the police who are able to task incidents for further progress, or is that a joint approach?
Predominantly for tasking, the police actually carry out the tasking. However, in terms of access, it's ourselves as a local authority and also the youth offending service, because obviously a proportion of our work is for under 18s. They also have access then to those inboxes.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is still on paragraph 4.1. It's the last sentence where incidents have not been responded to. Do you know what percentage of incidents have not been responded to? Are these figures available, and could they be available for this committee?
Is that in terms of a police response or as a local authority, like community safety partnership?
I'm just trying to read in the context of this question. So where they're unable to be verified, so is it just the police who verify?
Okay, so sorry, I get you. I haven't got figures to hand, but what that's sort of alluding to is if we provided you with sort of stats and numbers, antisocial behaviour reports and antisocial behaviour referrals are always of a different number. Sometimes the referrals are higher than the reports, because a referral, one incident might have 8 people attached to it. So we'll receive 8 referrals. And then on another note, a great deal of ASB referrals we have won't have anybody's ID attached to them. They won't have an address. So it may be that you yourself have called in and said there's 5 people causing trouble down at the local bus stop. And then when the police respond or anybody responds to it, there's no ID, there's no addresses. So it's purely noted then as either a hotspot area where we'll notify our youth offending service partners. So when they're carrying out any engagement work, we'll say this popped up this week as a matter of concern where young people were reported, but we haven't got any IDs. So we don't take it any further in that respect.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Thanks, Hilary. Any other questions? I've just got a couple following on from Hilary's questions. 4.2, page 6. We've got the council's got an online reporting, antisocial behaviour reporting system. Has that been shared with members, and do you advertise it via comms?
We've held back. What we're looking at doing is releasing the ASB diaries, and in conjunction with that, through Democratic Services, is pushing out the online model, which will then supplement the diary. So for an elected member, you may have a constituent contact you, you log it within the ASB diary, and then that will marry itself to the online reporting system, which will come into us. And then we record it on our internal database. So if we've received a number of referrals, and in a month's time, we need to come back to you as elected member to say, look, we're going to take some proactive action here. We need you to provide us with a statement. Everything will marry up. So you'll have your diary as a supporting evidence. I'm sure a lot of members keep their own diaries anyway. So, but what we want to do is create one that's specific for antisocial behaviour that will trigger it into our online recording. So we've held back pushing promoting the online referral, because what we want to do is do it in one package.
Okay, because I didn't even know he was there, and then I looked at it yesterday and I saw he was there after reading this report. And the other question following on page 8, where you've got a graph. I take it that graph is just 101. That's nothing. There's nothing related on there to our reporting system.
Yeah, that's all 101 data, that is.
You know, in terms of thanks, Ryan. In terms of the online system that the council be using, you'll be cross-referencing against 101 to see if it, yeah. All right, bro. Okay, thank you. I don't have any more questions. Anybody else? No.
Chair, with your indulgence, I'd just like to end it on a nicer note, really. We've talked a lot about crime and disorder and our CCTV service. I just want to tell you a story in terms of a report last week where we had an elderly couple visit the town centre, parked up, did their day shopping, and they forgot where they parked their car. Contacted South Wales Police in distress, and through our operator, we were able to locate where the car was parked, and the residents were able to find their vehicle and make their way home. So it just goes to show, just like the Yellow Page, it's not just the nasty things in life how CCTV operate.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing it. Sorry, I didn't even see you there.
Yes, it's on the graph on page 8, top of the page there. The numbers we got the side, I need to clarify it just to make sure that's not in percentage terms there. That's the number of ASB incidents you've had reported per month. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The occurrences, so that's the number of incidents in blue, and then the referrals in like an orange colour. And like I mentioned earlier, there's always a difference in those numbers. So we may have 100 incidents, which only translate into 40 referrals, because not all of them will have people's IDs,
right?
House addresses. So maybe you've called in and said, there's some people down the park causing trouble, and then if the police respond, they've gone within a few minutes. So what happens? It's sent through to us as a hotspot, but we might not have the person as a referral.
So I guess, Chair, that when a report comes in, quite a few of these are anonymous. Is that why there's no ID identified?
Yeah, some of them are anonymous. It's mainly relating to the identification of the perpetrators or the alleged perpetrator. What obviously, as the call goes into the police, they've got a task and put it through in terms of how they're going to respond to it, depending on the severity. If it's a threat to life, a threat to someone's getting harmed, or is there someone in a park that's smashing glass bottles and just being a nuisance? So it may be that they've responded and the people have moved on. So we haven't got that opportunity to get that young person's identification, refer them to youth offending and take those next steps then.
So the numbers in here are the numbers of it. You might have a number from one incident. So the figures you got there, the number of actual incidents are less than the total figures there.
So the graph in the color blue is the number of antisocial behavior incidents, which the police refer to as occurrences.
Right.
And then the orange ones are referrals. And it may be that someone's called something in and it's been categorized as antisocial behavior, but we don't receive a referral because it might be something really basic like noise nuisance and nothing else, etc. So it may go out then, they'll advise them to report to environmental health and things.
Right. Chair, we don't have the benefit of any colours, certainly on,
Oh, sorry.
on paper copy. And in future,
I'm on my screen.
yes, can someone put it just a little bit larger? Because when I had magnifying glass, I had a bit of a job.
Sorry, I'm talking
doing-
colours. You're probably wondering.
Yes.
So I've got it on my screen.
I thought with the dark colour and the lighter colour was something to do with it. Yes.
Thanks, Clive. Okay, move on to comments. Any comments? Councillor Salmon.
Thank you, Chair. There's a document that may be of interest to members, and it's called the Anti-Social Behaviour Crime and Policing Act 2014, and it's been updated in June of this year. And it just gives information on what powers are out there, such as criminal behaviour orders, dispersal power, PSPOs, community protection notices, that sort of closure powers as well. There's a lot of information in there on how you go about implementing these kind of things, and also if things aren't being done in your opinion, you've also got that call a trigger point, where if you report something, I think 3 times, and you believe that nothing is being done about it, you can hold either the police, the local authority, or different organisations to account. So that is a really good document for members to read. Also, last comment is it has to be made easier for residents to be able to report antisocial behaviour, because in my opinion, a lot of residents are put off because of the time it takes to report issues, and also for the fear of reprisals. And I do know that I created a neighbourhood watch leaflet for the Dowlis and Pant ward, which I delivered to streets in that were being affected by antisocial behaviour, where residents were telling me this is happening. And unfortunately, and I think Ryan would back me up on this, even after delivering those leaflets and giving all the different ways where people can report issues, people didn't come forward and report. So I think we need to stress on residents as well that if they want something done about a particular issue of antisocial behaviour going on in an area, they really do need to report it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Salmon. We'll make a note of that document, and we'll make sure it's shared with everyone as well. Clive?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The points that Councillor Salmon made is evidenced throughout other wards. I can't overestimate or underestimate the complaints that come from the public and the real frustration about the current system. It has to be looked at. It has to be changed, because when you have someone who has taken the time to ring 101 and they simply can't get through, or in some cases they're there perhaps half an hour or longer and they still can't get through, that tells you a story. They haven't got enough people coming in, perhaps at any one time, handling the calls. And then, Chair, the important thing is how those calls are prioritised. And if there is not consistency of prioritisation from one day to the next, we are in trouble, because we get this view from the public regularly in the PAC meetings that I chair. The police are there. They understand the frustrations. They make a note of it, but then nothing ever seems to have happened with it. So these complaints about the system must have got to the highest level, at chief constable level, and I don't understand, and I don't know what, if anything, has been done about it. But it certainly needs to be looked at. It needs to be streamlined, and the calls need to be dealt with, frankly, much quicker than they are at the moment. Now, people use 101 in some cases because they don't want to ring 999 and trouble the services there. But certain of these calls are a priority, and by the very nature of the call, they will see that, but that doesn't seem to happen in lots of cases. So I look forward to the workshop, but I think what we need to do at some time, Chair, is talk to people who are decision makers at the very highest level in the police force. And I'm sure they've heard this from other councillors in the other 6 authorities, the frustrations. What are you doing about it? And we need to have the answers. Thank you.
Thanks, Clive. Totally agree with you. I'm not going to disappoint you and tell you what they said the average call time wait was. We'll leave that for another time. Yeah. Oh, it was less than 10 minutes. Yeah. So, I think they've taken into account that calls that are happening at, averaging in 3 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday and Wednesday night, and using an average right across. But all I will say is we've gone through all of this, and it'll all be come out in the workshop. Clive?
I just think the figures you've just given need to be told to all the public there, and they'll tell you what the reality is and what the real situation is. I'm just flabbergasted that that's the information you've had from the police, that the average time is 10 minutes. We need senior police officers to come to our PAC meetings and other public meetings and tell the public that, and see what the reaction is from the members of the public.
Thanks, Clive. Right. I got no further comments. So, I'd just like to thank Paul Ryan and Councillor Simmons for attending. You're more than welcome to stay, but you're more welcome to take this time and leave. Thank you very much for all your answers as well on the report. Thank you. Okay, moving on, item agenda 4, the forward work program. We'll be meeting with senior officers and discussing the forward work program and what we need. But as we just discussed then, we're looking for the workshop. We've met with the police and community safety, Paul, and given them an outline of what we're looking for. the workshop's looking at, it's going to be the Wednesday 25th at 4 o'clock. That's the date that the majority can make. So we'll just get confirmation on that, and we'll get it out to you in the next couple of days. Councillor George?
Yeah. Will there be senior police officers at this meeting? You know, and I'm talking about perhaps not just the local police inspector, but very senior people who will take the trouble to come there
Yeah,
and talk to
I
us.
think it was Chief Superintendent that we met with, so, and he's planning on coming.
Right. That, I would say, is progress, because I'm sure these frustrations have got higher than the Chief Superintendent, but in our patch, he's the one in that's where the buck stops.
Yeah.
And you say that we'll have officers here. Will there be anybody else from any other, I don't know, any other agencies?
It'll be the police and our community safety team. So the level of scrutiny needs to be addressed to this team as well as the police. So
Right.
it'll just be those two teams.
Right.
There's nobody else. No.
And the workshops, would it be just for us or for all council members?
Well, it was going to be us, but I can discuss that and invite others in. Yeah.
Throw the offer out there.
Yeah,
but-
Yeah,
One is the main.
Yeah,
And they all want their little input.
yeah.
The thing is, you throw the offer out there, you can't be excluded.
Yeah.
So.
I'm happy with that.
I certainly think we've got views, definitely members of the committee here. You can quadruple that with all the members from the other wards. And I'd be very surprised if you don't have a good attendance
Okay.
at that meeting, Chair.
Thanks, Clive.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay. Forward work program done. Item agenda 5, scrutiny referrals. I don't have any. Item agenda 6, report recommendations. Did we address the recommendations in the report? 2.2, scrutiny committee to offer recommendations, feedback, observations to support the officers with future planning. How do you think we did? Yeah, all in agreement. I thought it was a decent meeting, considering I thought it'd be quite short. Hour and 20 in. Thank you for everyone for your input. Well, I do, and I've needed a toilet for about an hour as well. So okay, item agenda 7, feedback on scrutiny activities. Neil sent an email out earlier. Councillor George?
Yes. We've just recently had the figures from the cleansing of the housing waiting list.
Yeah.
Now, as the committee, scrutiny committee, covering this, I think the information will be helpful to all other members. We definitely need to have a breakdown of, the numbers have come down, not as much as I anticipated. So I'd be interested to know to what extent they've followed this up, etc. Because it's quite an extensive job cleansing the housing waiting list. Years and years ago, when I was a local government officer, I used to be involved in that. It's a mammoth task, but what we don't know at the moment is the current breakdown.
Okay.
And I think we need to ask for that initially for us, but I think the rest of the council members would be interested to see that as well, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Clive. We'll try and get that for you ASAP. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Williams-Price?
Thanks. Just in regards to the email Neil sent, it didn't cover the full amount of the detail I was expecting in response to what was agreed at the housing and homelessness session, specifically in regards to the point about the impact of the Renting Homes Act. So if it's okay, if I follow up via email with yourself, Chair, and Neil, to make sure we get that detail, is that all right?
Yeah, of course, no problem at all. Okay, any other thing? No. Okay. I think we covered all that feedback. Yeah. Moving on, item agenda 8. Any other business deemed urgent by the chair? I don't have any. Thank you everybody for attending. Bring the meeting to a close. Thank you all. See you soon.
Thank you, Chair.